Hello, everybody. Today is Saturday, June 5th, 2021, and this is our garden update. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but this is called moss rose, and I planted it last year, and it was really pretty. So this year I decided to go ahead and put it in this hanging pot. And my mother and father-in-law got us these hanging baskets this year, and they're called purslane. Over here we have our blackberry and raspberry bushes, and they are just loaded with fruit. So hopefully we'll be harvesting here in a few weeks. Did get my daughter's pool set up yesterday, and it is freezing, but she don't seem to mind. And back here in our tomato beds, this first row is our cherry tomatoes. And you could really tell how much they've grown in just 1 week. And most of our plants are starting to set fruit. Getting closer here so you can see these are gold nugget tomatoes. Say hi, Holly.
Hi.
And down the middle here we have our nasturtiums, and they should be out putting on flowers pretty soon. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, but this row right here of 10 tomato plants, it's kind of an experiment. It's going to be our paste tomatoes, but we bought all these at the store at a local nursery here. And the reason being is because we was so late putting out our tomatoes this year. It was almost May when we put them out, but some of them died, and a couple of them died after we got them put in the ground. But we'll see how these store-bought ones do this year. A lot of them are starting to set fruit. You can see here. And in this row, mostly our slicer tomatoes, and they're getting really tall. Now our system, we put these beds in last year, and we keep them to one single stalk, the tomatoes, and really keep the bottoms clear, as you can tell here, trimmed up. And that's for airflow, because tomatoes need good airflow. They're really susceptible to diseases, things like blight. And here we're in 7A growing zone, really hot and humid. Tomatoes really can get sick in that kind of conditions. But keeping them the leaves up off the ground, they really thrived last year, so discontinuing that this year. Now, my husband did put in drip irrigation this year, and that's really going to help keep all of our plants watered. Last year, I think, during the heat of the summer, I was watering. It took me like an hour to water everything out here. So that's going to be a big help this summer. But just in the last week, you can tell how big our plants have gotten. And over here, we've got our zinnias planted. Now, I still need to stain this. It'll keep the beds lasting a long time, and I think it makes them look nicer too. Now here we got our zucchini plants, and they are getting huge. You see they're starting to flower. Now when these start setting their fruit only takes a week, maybe 2 at the most, so hopefully we'll be harvesting pretty soon. And here we got our yellowneck squash, and they're getting huge. I haven't seen any flowers on these yet. Then back here we have our noodle beans, and they're starting to climb. And everything's really starting to grow and look beautiful. And back here we have our butternut squash. And it's getting huge already, so I think I'm going to go ahead and probably take this puny one out, just because I know these two on the ends here, they're going to get massive. And back here we have our Jacari melons. And they're starting to grow. And over here we have baby watermelons, small watermelons. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're doing good too. And over here we have our bush beans. And they're really starting to grow too. I need to go ahead and transplant that volunteer deal. Back in this bed we have our mammoth sunflowers. And they have really grown in the last week. They're called mammoth. Last year they were way above the fence line. So hopefully they do that well this year. You guys will be able to see. I went ahead and put some marigolds in this little flower planter. Something ate all my dwarf zinnias that I had planted in there. I just want flowers to attract the bees, the pollinators. Here is our Tiny Tim tomato. He's gotten a lot bigger since last week. Nasturtiums, probably some of my favorite flowers. They're so pretty, and they'll have all kinds of colorful blooms. This is a ghost pepper. This is a super hot pepper that we started inside, but it never came up. But when we brought out the other peppers outside, this guy finally came up a couple weeks later, so we'll put him in here and see what he does. Over here in these pots we have our cucamelons. I went ahead and transplanted these cucamelons. They were volunteers that came up in that bed back there. They're actually looking a lot better today. Yesterday they wouldn't look too hot. I guess I didn't like being transplanted. But as soon as those start looking a little better, I'm going to go ahead and move them over here to this fence right here where we have this cattle panel. And I'm going to grow them up let them grow up this cattle panel. Went ahead and got some more rosemary, planted it. We had some beautiful big bushes of rosemary, but they died in the freeze we had this year. And that is thyme. It lived. I'm pretty sure the same thing happened with these flowers. They did not like the freeze, and they did not flower this year. Hopefully they'll bounce back next year. They are beautiful lilies, so if it gets that cold again this year, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring them in the house. Our strawberries, putting on more flowers. It's a giant deal. And if you can see here, we got our peppers. These are jalapeno peppers, and they're already putting on lots of fruit, lots of peppers. And last year we grew the same kind of jalapenos, and they were super spicy. Bell peppers starting to get little buds on them. And then here we have our cucumbers. And our cucumbers are really starting to grow. As you can tell, starting to see some flower buds on those. So hopefully we'll be harvesting some cucumbers before too long. This is a bed of super hot peppers. We grow these peppers, the super hot peppers. My husband Jared, he likes to make hot sauce out of them. And right here, this is flowers. I'm not sure what this is called, but they get really tall and they're purple flowers and they're really pretty. I'm pretty sure still this is zinnias, but I could be wrong. I don't know if they're dwarf zinnias or something happened to them that stunted their growth. Let's wait and find out. Right here we have lemon basil, and it smells so good. And it tastes even better. But it's doing really good. And right here in these 3 pots, I have my zinnias, and they're really getting big. And I noticed yesterday that they're starting to get their buds on them. So here, probably next week, we're going to have a bloom of color. I love zinnias. They're so pretty. And you can see our green beans. They're getting really tall. They've almost reached the top. So hopefully we'll be harvesting some green beans pretty soon. But I think that's it for this week's garden update. Now, if you guys have any questions for me, just leave it down in the comments. And if you want to give my video a like, and you can subscribe also if you'd like to. I think that's it for this week though. Thanks for watching. See you again next week.